Hello to everyone. Welcome back if you are a returning customer to Short Takes. If you're watching at home, welcome. If you're watching at work, I'm going to turn the volume down just a little, but we welcome you. This is Short Takes. I am your host. I'm the editor-in-chief of the Alabama Take. My name is Blaine Duncan. Joining me today is a special guest. You probably have seen her before in your Facebook feed. That's my guess. Even if you don't know her, you've seen her face, I bet, and you've heard her talk. She would have popped up in your timeline if you subscribe to AL.com. She's the managing producer for the news at AL.com, so blame her for all of your issues you see in the media. She's an expert interviewer, and she's a great reporter, so I have my hands full today. The tables are turned on her. It's Ivana Hrynkiw.
Hey, Blaine, thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, so now you're in the chair with the questions being tossed to you.
I know, I'm a little bit nervous about it, I gotta say.
Oh. So you are an interviewer, and really good at it. Give me a good hot tip off the top of your head.
You know, it's funny because anytime I sit down for an interview, which is every day, but people will ask me in the morning, like, oh, what are you going to ask so and so? And I have found that when I have a written list of questions, it throws me off. I can't do it. I cannot have questions written out. I just have to kind of go in it and figure it out as I go. I work much better under pressure than I do otherwise.
Wait a minute. You're telling me you fly off the cuff?
I do.
That's astounding.
Well, it would be if I had a list in front of me. I've tried it and I just end up like looking down, reading it verbatim, and then looking back up and looking down. So I just have to wing it, and I hope that it goes well.
I have never addressed this on camera, but our viewers might know if they're careful and they've tuned in. They catch me kind of looking to the side rather than at the viewer, and it's because I have notes. I've got notes. So. It's okay.
You do what you got to do. It's fine.
But for anyone who's curious like me, what does someone who produces the news do? The word producer is used in a lot of different mediums. You got a record producer, a movie producer, and they all do different things. So that word means so many different things. But what does it mean in the news?
So I am actually our managing producer of news video and social media. So what I do is I handle any sort of video that comes out of AL.com, Alabama Media Group, and that comes from me when it comes from the newsroom. So that means that when you see a video that maybe was submitted by something like a police department or a agency like that, that usually passed through my hands so we can get it onto our different channels, whether that's social media, whether that's the AL.com site or YouTube, comes through me and I edit that. And what I mean by edit that is saying I slap our logo on it or I put it in the correct file size, etc. I don't mean cutting it and doing anything else with it. I know that there's a lot of conspiracy theorists who like to say that things are chopped up. That is not the case here. But so that's one part of it. The other part of it is I run a team that handles our social media accounts. So that's everything from YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, and everything under that umbrella. So I've got a lot of hats, and I also do my own reporting as well for our videos. So I still have my reporter shoes on a little bit there, and I like it that way. But I got a lot of different hats to put on, and sometimes they all have to just sit on my head together.
It sounds busy. Like, is this Monday through Friday? Do you find yourself having to do work things on Saturday, Sunday?
Sometimes I do. It really depends on what the week is like. We also internally, because news is not a 9-to-5 job, right? It's not a 7-day, it's a 7-day a week job. It's a holiday job. It is all the time. So we actually do have rotations internally that different people will have to staff different weekends, different holidays, et cetera. And it's just on a rotating basis. So there are certain weekends and holidays that I do work just because out of fairness, that's my time on the calendar. Outside of that, if there is a story that breaks on a weekend that has a video component, especially, and needs my hands on it in some form or fashion to, again, produce it as in resize it, upload it to our channels, etc., then I grab that. The good thing about news is that when it rains, it pours, and when it's dry, it is a drought. So you kind of can find yourself a little, maybe it's a Monday afternoon, but you have a little bit more time because it seems like everything happened in the last couple of days. So it's definitely an ebb and flow workflow.
Yeah, you're on call on some weekends then, like a doctor.
Exactly.
I guess with the news, with you being news producer, you just address it a day at a time. So there's nothing like no secrets you're kind of sitting on, or no special things you can reveal related to AL.com in August.
There are things that if you look at a calendar from a news perspective, is coming, right? I don't know
Hmm.
how many of your viewers live in Birmingham city limits. There is a mayoral race coming in August in Birmingham. There is a mayoral race coming in Mobile this year as well. So there are some things that we know are coming, like those mayoral races. There are always things like that that are kind of on our calendar, but so much of our content is or are rather things that happen on a daily basis. Now, there's also a couple of projects that are in the back of my mind in the works, and I'm not going to keep those a little tight-lipped, so you
Okay.
will have to wait and see about those. But otherwise, when it comes to news, there are things that we know are coming and we have plans to cover, but you kind of can't start covering them until the appropriate time, right? Like we can start covering the mayoral's race as different filings come in, but it's hard to do anything until people actually start casting their ballots.
Okay, well that's fair. So you have done a little blogging as well, and people can visit that still. Am I right about?
Yes, that is true. I have been really lazy during the pandemic when it comes to that. I did run a beauty and style and somewhat home blog for a while. It's called the
Right.
Southern Style Diaries, southernstylediaries.com. And this past year, I've been a little bit lazy about it because you can't get a lot of outfit inspiration from sitting at home in your slippers all the time.
Sure.
Hopefully, we're coming out of that, and my bank account surely knows I'm buying clothes. So hopefully, by August, by the time your viewers see this, we will be back up and running over there.
Yeah. So what drew you to doing that?
I've always been I've always been a writer since I was little. I was reading, whether I was reading to my pets or whether I was writing stories just that nobody would read. I always did. But I also always grew up such a person interested in beauty and fashion, just really girly girl on that side of things. So, especially when I was in college and I was working at a restaurant and then I was also taking college classes, it was hard to find an outlet to write about what I wanted to write because in college you get your prompt and you've got to write it. There's no
Right.
I would like to do this. So I started in college just because it was something that was kind of a creative outlet for me,
Yeah.
and then I have tried to transition it a little bit more into my adult life and into adulthood. And now I just force my husband to be my fashion photographer, which surprisingly is going well.
I noticed there's not any Marvel related content on your blog. Where does that go? Just straight to your Twitter feed?
Straight to Twitter because during the pandemic, when we were all stuck at home, especially at that very
Hmm.
beginning of the pandemic,
Yes.
I'm a person that I like to go do things, right? I've definitely
Yeah.
in my life not spent as much time at home as I have during 2020 and 2021. So we thought that it would be fun, my husband and I, to just do the Marvel thing. Let's do it chronologically. Let's start it. And he had already watched a lot of them. He was really into it. And I was like, I don't think that this is going to be for me, but here we go. What else? Literally, what else am I going to do? And it turns out I became obsessed. So that's why it's not there. I might have to take on some sort of what would Captain Marvel wear to a cocktail party situation. So you might have to see that one, but maybe they'll make an appearance.
How deep did the two of you go with it? Did you watch the ABC series? I mean, did you have that much time on your hands where you watched some of the related ABC series and Netflix shows, or did you only do movies?
We did it all. I have not finished. Maybe by the time this airs, I will finish WandaVision. Haven't finished it yet, but no, we've done all of it. We watched the cartoon multiverse version of Spider-Man that came out a few years ago.
Right.
We have
Yeah.
watched,
Yeah.
yes, which was bizarre. We watched all of the different movies, watched the shows. The only one we didn't watch was the original Hulk movie that has not been remade, that they never redid the origin story with Mark Ruffalo. We didn't go back and watch that original Hulk, which I guess at this point I have to do because now I've outed myself about it. But as of today, that's the only one I haven't seen.
Are you talking about the one with Ed Norton?
Yes.
Yeah, because the villain in that is supposed to make an appearance in a September MCU movie.
Oh, I didn't realize. Well, now you've forced me. Now I have to.
Uh, hey. No, a lot of us at the Alabama Take are big fans. We do an occasional piece on those. We have a lot of fun with talking about them, especially our go-to girl, Natalie Morrow. She really helps us. She guides us through the Reddit chatter and things like that. So she's good. But you're
You
also
have
a
to have.
football fan.
I am. Yes, I'm a
I'm
49ers
sorry.
fan. You can't see it. You can't see it on me. I've got a 49ers pillow under me. I've got a like a soccer style scarf behind me that we got when we went to the Super Bowl. So I've got quite a lot of that around here. So looking forward to that season to get started.
And our episode will release a couple of weeks before football season starts. Do you have a college preference?
So I am a graduate of UAB, University of Alabama at Birmingham. So go Blazers there. I'm a big UAB fan. I also am an Auburn fan. I'm a little bit more a UAB fan and I'm more a 49ers fan than I am an Auburn fan. But if you're going to make me pick during the Iron Bowl, I am an Auburn fan all the way.
Are you originally from Birmingham?
I am. So I'm born, raised, and I went to UAB. I didn't go very far.
That's great. Well, and can I ask your last name? I don't know the where that would have originated.
Yes, so my last name is Hrynkiw. That is Ukrainian. So my dad is Ukrainian, born and raised in Chicago, and my mother is actually also from Birmingham. She's from the West End, so she is not from very far from where I grew up. And even now, I live probably 8 minutes from my parents. So we're very family oriented. I'm very, very lucky to have that support system here, and I'm reminded every day how lucky I am to have that because I have friends that are from out of state and their families are across the country. They are plane rides away. And it's so nice that I can just drive to my mom's and pick up a load of laundry if I need to.
Was life odd for you when we had a first lady who had your first name for 4 years?
It was nice that there was finally a reason for people to say and spell my name correctly. That was a blessing in disguise for me. I'll give it that. I have not had the pronunciation trouble that I had before that administration. So that was a blessing in disguise.
You want to dive into the 4 questions? You all set?
Let's do it.
Let's do it. So my first question is, you being a news producer and a reporter, what have you learned about humanity from doing your job or from interviewing a vast number of people?
I think that there's kind of one theme to me when it comes to that question, and that is you see humanity in the smallest ways, and the way that you help humanity is in the smallest ways. The small things are what matters. The big things don't matter as much. And I have kind of a twofold answer for why. So number one, when I used to cover courts and I covered early morning crime. And often when you're covering that, more than not, you are meeting somebody on the worst day of their lives. That could be from a person who just found out that their family member or their significant other, et cetera, was killed in often a very horrible way. That could be when you're in the courtroom, when there is testimony about said killing that is just tragic. And you are sitting behind a mother, a husband, a spouse, et cetera, that is hearing some of this information for the first time. You have to remember you are meeting these people again, the worst day of their lives, and
Yeah.
it's not the worst day of your life. So there's definitely a
Right.
shift there that you have to get in your mind. You might be aggravated that it's pouring rain and it is 100% humidity, and you are at this scene and you're waiting for a source to give you information, or you're waiting for a family member to make a comment. And it's easy sometimes to get caught up in that annoyance or get caught up in saying, oh, I should have had a story filed 5 minutes ago. I don't have it. But that's when you have to remember that small moment that they are experiencing something that is going to change their lives forever. And that is more important than your annoyance about the weather, than it being hot, than you being, again, 5 minutes late and your editor being mad at you. Give me that any day over what I'm covering. So that's one. And that also applies to things that I still cover now when it comes to, say, storm damage. When you go to meet people who maybe lost a loved one in a storm or who lost their entire life in a storm, meaning their house, their life savings, et cetera. that is the same situation. So there's that. Then you go to this other side, especially that we've seen over the past year, and especially when I started doing a daily interview show, and that is interviewing people that they're not having a bad day, but that's when you have to look at the audience. And sometimes you're doing an interview and you know what the answer is, right? When you ask a question, you often know or have an idea of what the person's going to say,
Mm-hmm.
but the viewer doesn't know. And the viewer might ask a question that you think is really simple, or you think, oh, you can Google it. But just sometimes answering somebody's question that trusts you and trusts me enough to give them that information, and they are trying to learn information, they're trying to get factual information, which at this time, 2021, is kind of hard to do, and a lot of people don't do. So when somebody is really trying to get an answer, whether you agree with them or you don't agree with them, or you've said it 15 times and they didn't hear, you have to kind of, again, let go of that annoyance of saying, look, just Google it and just answer that question, because it's that small act of kindness that then can change their life. They might have been informed about something and change their mind based on whatever simple answer you just said. And that can reverberate and have a really big consequence on their life. So it sounds a little bit like a big picture thing, and it is big picture, but it's
Yeah.
done in very small ways.
I'm going to cheat on number one and do some follow-ups. Do you have to deal with hateful or rude comments or emails?
I do. And the funny thing is, that has actually gotten a little bit better since I started coming on camera every day. And I think that's
Wow.
because when you are behind a screen and when you are just getting your name out there, when I was just doing written content, it was a lot easier for people to be hateful. And that happened all the time. You can't, as a journalist, put much stock into that. You have to just let it go, delete it, and move on. But
Hmm.
when I started coming on camera every day, it's gotten better. I mean, even people that do have something ugly to say at this point, they kind of can couch it in a way to where it isn't as aggressive as some of the emails I was getting before. And when I say that, I mean that somebody will say, well, I don't like the way that your eyelashes look today. And that's, I'll deal with that. That's fine. That's a lot better than the aggressive hate mail that you get when, again, you are just writing and they just see your byline. So I think there's a little bit more of a human element when you're on screen. People can see you, people know you. You see inside my house every day. And, I even once or twice on camera, I've had a dog sitting in my lap on camera because they just wouldn't go to their room. So
Yeah.
I think when you add that humanity into it again, it kind of makes people a little bit kinder.
I get really frustrated personally at the comments from Alabamians for AL.com that some people, not all, some are insistent that you guys are lying or making things up or have a bias. That's the big one. It's just I don't know. I get frustrated, so I'm impressed with you and your cohorts are able to just say that's not the important part or not take it personally. John Archibald has been on our show before, and he seems to take it all with a grain of salt, and it's just impressive.
Well, he's an expert at it. He's been doing it so long. I don't think anything could. I've never seen John rattled in my 6 years of being at this company, so I can only imagine what it would have to take to rattle him. I hope that I am that unflappable one day.
He's a kind guy too. He's a very nice guy. And you've interviewed Dr. Fauci.
I have
What,
interviewed Dr. Fauci.
what can you say about him that maybe others haven't seen?
He was extremely kind. He didn't have any sort of, didn't have a lot of time to talk off of camera, off of what you've seen on camera. But
Oh
I do
yeah.
know when I had ended our recording, he was just very kind. He kept thanking me for what I was doing and just said, let me know what you need, which what am I going to let him know I need, right? But he was just so kind, and he never once treated me or my questions differently than what I see him treat national media and their questions. I feel like I got the exact same respect. I got the exact same answers and the exact same treatment. And so that's important. There's a lot of people who maybe would think, oh, well, your local media, you're not as important as our national media. And I did
Hmm.
not get that sense at all from him.
Good. Let's go to this. Kind of bleeds into question two. So what kind of person scares you, particularly if you have to interview them?
I don't know who scares me, right? Scare is a big word. I'm scared of heights. I don't know a person that I'm scared of, but I think the hardest person to interview is somebody who is so set in their ways that no matter what you say, no matter what you do, or no matter what you show them, they're not going to listen to you and they do not envision changing their mind for any reason. And that can be anybody from an elected official, from a public official, to just a person that you are trying to get their opinion on, what we call man on the street in news, just somebody you're trying to get their opinion. It can be either way. There are people like that in every sector. And that's what's hard because you can present them with as much data, as much evidence, anything, and you can show it to them and they will not change their mind. It's like a person who says that the sky is red and you show them that the sky is not red, but they just won't listen and they say, nope, it's red and it's going to be red. That's the hardest person to interview.
Uh-huh. You want to name names?
I don't want to name names. I will give you a semi-funny story, though. You talk about a
Oh,
scary person to interview. I was
yeah.
at one point several years ago covering a pretty big federal trial, and it was a case where I was only doing print reporting. And to be totally honest, I was exhausted. It had been every day, all day, and the courtroom was absolutely freezing. So there was one day, and it was during the winter. So there was one day where I just showed up and I looked like I had a blanket just on me. I had glasses on, I had like a shawl. It was not my day. And I was sitting in the back row of the courthouse or the courtroom because there was an outlet I could plug my laptop in.
Hmm.
And the door was right behind me, and somebody opened the door, and they were coming in to later I learned go up to the witness stand, and I kind of turned around because the door was right behind me, and I just looked like I had wandered in off of the street, and I was just getting, using it as a warming station, and I look up, and it was Condoleezza Rice. And I look at her and she looks at me and she's like right here. And I just said hi because I just didn't know how else to react because I had like a bun on my head again and glasses and a blanket. And she looked at me and she was so sweet. She said, "Hi, how are you?" And I said, "I'm okay." But that was definitely a very intimidating moment for me. It's intimidating when
Yeah.
you're not ready and somebody else is.
Right. Yeah, that would be intimidating to me in any situation,
Mhm.
ready or not. The third question I have for you, what problems do you often face, even outside of news, and how do you adjust to them or face them?
I think one of my biggest flaws in my personality in life is that I have a tendency to think that Rome was built in a day and that Rome can be built in a day and should be built in a day. So I have a
Hmm.
problem with a big project that requires a lot of different moving pieces, that requires a lot of work, etc., thinking that it needs to be done by the time I go to bed.
Yeah.
And that's hard in personal life, but it's really hard when you have different projects going on at work, often that require a lot of different pieces, right? It's
Yeah.
physically impossible to get done in a day.
Yeah.
And then on top of that, I've also got so many other things going on. It might be a project for video, but then I have to make sure that our social media accounts are taken care of. I've got to make
Hmm.
sure that I've got my show handled. I've got to make sure that there are other elements that are going up on the website, going up on our socials, on YouTube. So it's just sometimes kind of overwhelming to
Hmm.
think I have to get all of this done in a day. And this one really big thing, I've got to get it done. It has to be perfect and it has to be done today. So that's probably my biggest flaw, probably personally and in work. I'm trying to get better.
Wow, I can relate to that feeling. I was thinking about how that sounds a lot like me too. So,
And it's the worst too when it comes to something like painting a room, right? Or any type of house project. I have
yes,
to get up and it has to be done. And it can be midnight and that room's going to get painted. I
right.
don't care how it has to happen. It's just going to get painted. So it's definitely again something we're working on.
We've moved a few times, and I want all the boxes unpacked before I go to bed that night, and that's
Yep.
exhausting and
Yep.
physically impossible, like you said.
Correct.
So we have a catchphrase, whatever you want to call it. It's that something's done up real good. It's more or less that something's making you happy, or you're into it these days. So, what's done up real good for you?
I think I have to have two. Is that allowed?
Oh yeah. Some people will just rattle off lists. This is great. Yeah.
I think number one, it's going to have to go back to being Marvel. Marvel done up real good
Oh
because
yeah.
I have just gotten through 2020 and through 2021 with it. I had my first back to the movie theater experience, I guess, since the end of 2019, seeing Black Widow here a few
Hmm.
weeks ago, and I was kind of surprised at the amount of anxiety I had going in a movie theater and sitting down in a movie theater and having all the seats full. I kind of started to get a little panicky. So that
Huh.
was surprising, but it was fun. We had the best time. The movie was incredible if you haven't seen it. And then Loki's also been our Wednesday night to just eat dinner, eat whatever we want, watch it, and just dissect it. And I have
Hmm.
a problem of having to pause every like 10 minutes and take it all in.
Yeah.
So that's been fun. I'm at this point, and as of today, it is no longer our Wednesday night habit. We're gonna have to find a new one.
Hmm.
But definitely Marvel done up real good. And my other one is Peloton. So my splurge during 2020 was a Peloton, like a lot of people. Who probably had the same thing. Gyms are closed. What are you going to do? And
Hmm.
I have been very obsessed with my Peloton. It has definitely been a game changer for me. So Peloton definitely done up real good.
Okay. So what all can you do? Is it just a bike? Am I picturing the wrong thing?
Yes, you are. So it is a bike. Okay. It, though, comes with an app, or you can also get the app, which has all kinds of other classes. They've got strength classes, cycling classes. They have running
Mhm.
classes. That's not going to happen, but they do have them. And they have yoga and stretching, all kinds of things. But it's been helpful. Now my gym is back open and I do kickboxing and self-defense work. And so that's very important to me. But on the days where sometimes I just can't make it to the gym, that Peloton is definitely getting its money's worth. And I thought I was a pretty fit person. I still think I'm a pretty fit person, but oh my gosh, you get on that Peloton and you realize like, whew, it is a humbling experience. You realize very quickly you are not as fit as you thought you were.
I think I saw you tweet yesterday that you couldn't believe you made it through without losing all of your breath and falling on the floor or something to that extent.
I've definitely almost gone too far many a time. Story of my life, right? But yes, there was a day where I had been off of it for probably a week and a half. I've been training for some other things at my gym. So I got back on it, and I am glad it was a Sunday. I didn't have to do anything the rest of the day because I got off and could barely make it back up the stairs to lay on the couch.
Wow. Yeah, I'm impressed. I don't. I need to push myself harder than I do, I suppose. Ivana, I know you're busy. Sounds like you're incredibly busy, but you took a little time out for us today. That I appreciate this, and our viewers will appreciate getting to know you more. Our viewers can continue to see your work by going to AL.com. I would imagine a lot of our viewers already are in tune with AL.com. You guys are on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, and all the rest. I find your personal Twitter very entertaining. That's where you get out some of that Marvel talk in you. It's Ivana Suzette, if I'm not mistaken. So our viewers can
Yes,
find
we
that.
get my pinned tweet like at the very top of that feed is that we talk about current court cases and reality TV and of course dogs. So there's a little something for everybody.
You didn't mention Sophia. Is that the name of the Netflix show? As you're done it real good.
Sophie, oh my
Sophie.
gosh.
Sophie.
If
Okay.
your viewers
So.
have not watched Sophie by this point, watch
Hmm.
it, DM me, we will talk about it. I have so many feelings. I've called my mom at least 3 times today to try to debrief with her. And I know she's like, Ivana, I have things to do. Let me go. But there's just so much. There is so much to talk about.
You'll appreciate this, I think. From your Twitter feed and me seeing that, I recommended that show to my wife. I hadn't watched it, but I said I've heard this is good. So there you go.
Oh, good. I'm so glad. I hope that she watches it and she's got to tell me all about it because I've got thoughts. I know
All
we're
right.
journalists. We're not supposed to have our own private thoughts, but I have a lot of thoughts about Sophie.
Oh, sure, you can have private thoughts. Your blog, southernstylediaries.com, if you choose to pick up that mantle again, it's out there for people to look at. Again, I thank you. And for our viewers, her name's Ivana. You've seen her before. Now, hopefully, you know her a little better. And I will be back next week. See everyone later.
Will went walking and was blown away. Found his finger by my mama's grave.